Okay, so one thing that most of you have asked me about, and we are all realizing, we should know this, is that every time you want to use a large language model, you actually have to pay, right? So the idea is that if you want to use ChatGPT or OpenAI models, you have to pay. That's just the way the world works. Here's the thing. There's actually a way in which you can run large language models locally on your machine without having to pay a dime. So that's really awesome. But also on top of that, what we get from that is the sense of security and also privacy. Because as you know, if you are creating a RAG system, if you don't know what RAG is, I have a video we can find somewhere here where I talk about creating RAG systems, RAG applications. If you're creating RAG applications, that means you have to serve documents. And there are times when those documents need to be private or are private to you or your organization, and you don't want that to be somewhere where you don't know, because when you do that, that means the company that is hosting those documents, we don't know what they're going to do with those documents. So there is a security and privacy issue, and that is all solved when we are able to use a tool that I'm going to show you in this video, where you actually get different large language models internally or locally, and you can use those large language model without having to pay essentially for anything, which is awesome. So that's exactly what we're going to be doing. I'm going to show you in this course how to use Ollama as a tool, as a little framework, where we're going to be able to work with different large language models and do all sort of things. All of that locally, securely, and most of all, without having to pay for API fees and all of that. Right, let's go ahead and get started. Now it's time for us to do the deep dive in Ollama, so we understand exactly what is Ollama, what is the motivation behind, and the advantages that Ollama brings for us developers. Okay, so first let's look at Ollama. What is it? Ollama is an open source tool that is designed to essentially simplify the process of running large language models locally, meaning on your own hardware. The idea here is very simple. As you know, right now, if you want to run large language models, or if you want to use a model, large language model, in this case, just a model, most likely you'll have to use OpenAI, ChatGPT, and so forth, and many others out there that are paid. And the thing is, with Ollama, you don't have to pay for anything. It's free. And that's the beauty. So the idea is that Ollama sits at the center and allows us developers to pick different large language models depending on the situation, depending on what we want to do. At its core, Ollama uses what we call the CLI, which is Command Line Interface. What this does is it manages all the things in the back end. So the installation and also the execution of different models. But all of that, again, keep in mind, it's all locally. You will see as we go through that Ollama abstracts away the technicalities or the technical complexity that are involved when we want to set up these models, which makes advanced language processing accessible to a broader audience, such as developers, researchers, and hobbyists. In a nutshell, Ollama provides a straightforward way to download, run, and interact with various models or LLMs without us having to rely on cloud-based services or even dealing with complex setup procedures. Rather, what is the problem that Ollama solves? Now, when we talk about large language models, we are usually talking about this thing called RAG systems, retrieval augmented generation. The idea is very simple, is that we have documents. Those documents are chopped into smaller chunks, right? And then we pass those through a model that is responsible for creating embeddings, which is the vector representation of these chunks. Those embeddings are saved somewhere, and then a query comes in, goes through the same process of embedding, right? And then once we have this embedding, that is indeed what's actually used to query, do similar search internally in a vector database, so that we can then pass all that information, right, through a large language model, and of course get the response. Now, again, usually what happens is that all these models that we need to run a RAG system, for instance, we may need to pay, such as when we use the OpenAI ChatGPT and all different models that they provide. Okay. Now, the other thing also behind all of that is that when we are using Ollama models, these are ours, meaning that we download them internally in our local machine and we have a lot of control. Okay? So that is the beauty of, or in this case, that is the problem that this solved. But that's not the only problem that is being solved. The other one is that privacy. So in this case here, when we run our own models locally, we are making sure that our data doesn't need to be sent to external servers. Because remember, when we're passing data through a large language model, using ChatGPT in this case, or OpenAI models and so forth, we literally are passing through or sending our private data to different servers that we don't know what will happen out there. So this way we have some security issues, but with Ollama, that goes away because we have this enhanced privacy and security. This is very important because imagine that you have an application that needs to be dealing with sensitive information. Then it's important to have your own models, your own LLM, so that you have this contained environment where you're not sending out that sensitive information. When you want to set up large language models, it is cumbersome, which means it's technically challenging and often requiring knowledge of machine learning frameworks and also hardware configurations. But as you will see with Ollama, all of that is simplified. So this whole process is simplified by handling the heavy lifting for you. Also, most importantly, cost efficiency. Now we're going to be eliminating the need for cloud-based services, which means you're going to avoid this ongoing costs associated with API calls or server usage, because everything, remember, is going to be local. So once you have everything set up, you can run models without additional expenses. The other one is latency reduction. What that means is that local execution obviously reduces the latency inherent in network communications. So when we are communicating with something that is somewhere else through the network, of course, there is always a delay. Even if the network is really fast, there's always this latency, the delay, okay? But since everything is local, we don't have that problem, okay? Because we're not dealing with remote servers, which results in faster response times for interactive applications. And also, most importantly, we are able to customize our own models, because when we're running these models locally, it allows for greater flexibility in customizing or even fine-tuning those models to better suit specific needs without having these limitations imposed by third-party services. So these are some of the advantages we have by using Ollama models. Okay, so now it's time for us to look into setting up Ollama locally. And what we'll do, we're going to go through the installation process and do the setup. Before we do setup, there's some things I need to let you know. Most of you should be okay. There are some system requirements we need to be aware of. First of all, Ollama supports Mac, Linux, and Windows, and I'm sure other operating systems there as well, but these are the main ones. And also make sure that you have at least close to 10 gigabytes of free storage on your machine. This is very important because, as you will see, some of these models require a lot of space. And also processor. As long as you have a modern CPU processor, you should be fine, and most of you should have that in place. Okay, so just something to keep in mind. All right, let's go ahead and get started with installing and setting up Ollama. So if you go to ollama.com, OLLAM.com as such, this is what you are going to be able to see. It says here, get up and running with large language models. Now, because this is a moving target in technology, things may change a little bit or dramatically by the time you watch this video. Hopefully not. But the most important thing here to remember is that the idea is still the same. You will be able to download this tool and use that way, independent on how it looks. Okay, so should look the same, but you never know. And you can see here at the recording of this video, says here Llama 3.2. This is the latest Llama 3.2 model that they provide. We need to download Ollama. How do we do this? Well, it's very simple. All you do, click here, download. Once you click that, this will take you to download Ollama page. Now you can see we have 3 different flavors. We have Mac OS, so the browser was able to pick up that I am on Mac and so offered Mac. If you're on Linux, of course, you'll have to click and look at this. So you'll have to install by taking this command and running on your terminal. If your Windows, of course, is also just like Mac, you have to download as an application and run it. Okay, whichever way, you have to download the Ollama zip file. So I'm on Mac, I'm going to click download, and then you can see that it is downloading here. So I'm going to wait for a second. All right, so it was downloaded, and let's go ahead and click and open real quick. So this is what you should see, a zip file, at least on Mac. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and double click, and it's going to unzip, and then it's going to look like this as an application. Okay, so what I will do, I'll just double click again, and it will install again as an application on my Mac. So I'm going to say open, that's fine. And then I'm going to move to applications, and there we go. So once we've done that, I'm going to show you real quick here. This is what I see. So I have now this window on Mac that allows us to go through the process. I'm going to say next and install the command line. I'm going to say go ahead and say install, and I'm going to need to pass here my credentials. Say okay. So run your first model. So we're going to run this Ollama run Llama 3.2. Now again, this number here may be different from when you're watching this. Doesn't matter, just follow the instructions. So I'm going to say finish. So what happens now is going to go ahead in the back end, run the command, and everything is good. So it's going to install the Llama 3.2, which is a model. That's a large language model that's going to be installed with our installation so we can get started. And you can see once that happens that the Llama is running, because now we have this icon at the top that is showing there. This is Llama icon, and you can quit from here as well. Okay, next what you can do is let's go back to models. This page, this is where all the different models that Ollama has, this is where they are aggregated, and we can look into them and learn about them. You can see at the top we have Llama 3.2, which is the latest one, which is the one that was installed already locally in our machine. We'll come to this later and see more. Now let's go ahead and click on this one so I can show you something real quick here. Okay, the beauty here is that when you click on any of these large language models, you will see essentially the same things. Okay, if we have these 3B, we'll talk about this later, and 1B, latest, and so forth. Okay, and then most importantly, we also have all of these things that we don't care about at this point. We have a README, we have the sizes to tell us exactly what they mean, what they're good at, this 3B default for instance, and how to run it. So this is essentially what you have at the top here. So we're going to copy this and we're going to open a command line or a terminal. I have one open and I'm going to paste that. So what this does, well, it says Ollama run Llama 3.2. So what we're saying here, we're going to use Ollama as the tool, the framework, right, to run Llama 3.2, which incidentally, it's already installed on our machine, right? I'm going to just hit enter. And what we'll do is going to spin up the Llama 3.2 model for us, and then open this shell where we can start interacting with the model, just like that. Now I need you to think, to go back to what we talked about, the beauty or the advantages of using Ollama is that Ollama has different models that we can use and install them internally, locally on our machine, and we can easily then, through Ollama as this manager of this model, start interacting with different models. Right now, we are interacting, we're able to interacting through the shell here with Llama 3.2 model, which means I can ask question like, how old is the universe? Look at that, and it gives me an answer. The thing to keep in mind is that Llama 3.2 tends to be a little bit verbose, and as you can see, it is quite verbose, but that's okay. I can say, in short, tell me how old is the universe? So you can actually direct it to tell you exactly what you need, right? It's kind of like prompting it a little bit. So the universe is approximately 13.8 billion years. All right. So I can also say, for instance, clear. See what's going to happen. Glad you could convey that information clearly. I guess I have to say something like this. Clear. It cleared the session. Okay. Now, I can continue here by saying, for instance, for help, I can say / I can put the exclamation point, or I can say help like this. So this will give me, it's actually exactly other commands that I can use. We have the set, show, load, save, and clear session, as we saw, as well as by to exit the shell. So let's go ahead and use this show here. Okay, I'm going to say / show what is that I want to show. I want to show info. So this will give us information about the model that we are looking at, which is the Llama 3.2. It says here architecture is Llama. The parameters is 3.2b. We'll talk about that. And the context length is that, and embedding length, and so forth. And some other licensing information. So just like that, ladies and gentlemen, we're able to install Ollama, and of course, because Ollama itself is just a manager, we need to have the actual large language model, and that's easy to do by installing, in this case, Llama 3.2. We could have installed any other model, of course, but we start with that one when we're installing Ollama. All right, so now I can say another question. Tell me a short joke. Okay, here's one. Why couldn't the bicycle stand up by itself? Because it was too tired. Very funny. All right, and if I want to get out of this shell, I can say / by like this, and you can see we're no longer in our Llama 3 shell. So I can clear, and we're done. Okay, very good. So I hope this is a good introduction. There is a lot that's coming, and I hope this excites you, because the power that we have right now is that all of this is locally. We've imported, we have downloaded the Ollama tool, in this case, manager, along with one model, which is Llama 3.2. Okay, make sure that you're able to do this, and I'll see you next. So going back to our Llama 3.2 model page here to see more information. Now you understand what 3B means, what B means, and the implications and so forth. And one thing you will realize also is that at the bottom we have what we call benchmarks. Now, I don't really trust a lot of these benchmarks, because anybody can inflate the benchmarks or deflate them to follow a certain agenda. But nonetheless, it's nice to look at and see the benchmark. But one thing I want to show you here is the implication of the sizes, the parameters. If I go back perhaps, and let's go back to models here real quick, and let's look for something different. Let's look for Llama 3.1. You can see with Llama 3.1, you even have 8B, 70B, 405B. Let's click on 405B. Well, let's look at this one. You can see that if we go to 405B, that's 229 gigabytes of space you have to have in your hard disk. That's a lot. And even if you're able to have that internally, locally, that means you also have to have the computational capacity for you to be able to run these models. So this is something to keep in mind. You could have the capacity of having 229 gigabytes locally, but will you have the capacity of the computational resources that are needed to run this? Now, keep in mind, as you learn now, this is probably one of the best models versions, right? Because it has everything. It's large, billions and billions of nodes and neurons and everything. That's something to keep in mind. And so for things that most of us are able to do, want to do, 8B, even 70B should be totally fine. Okay? Just something to keep in mind. And as you go through each one of these different models, they have different things. Okay, you can see, of course, we have more information here, 405B, 7B, 8B, and so forth, as we talked about. And they tell us the evaluation and what they're good at, when should you use it, and all these different informations, as well as human evaluation, as you see here. So this is something to always go ahead and read, and perhaps go to some links here to read more about it. Now, I want you to always have this inquisitive mindset whenever you're looking for models so that you know exactly what you're getting and contracts that with what you want to accomplish. That's how you need to go by when it comes to using Ollama and different models here. It's not just one model fits all. That's not the idea. The idea is that you find something that will work for you. Okay, so models are real fun, and you can always go ahead and test them out. All right, so I hope you're enjoying this course. I just want to stop real quick here to let you know that I do have a course, a full course, where I show you everything you need to know essentially about Ollama and how to use Ollama to manage all of these different large language models that you can use locally. If you're interested in a full-on course on that, it's actually really cheap considering. Take a look down in the descriptions and you should have a link where you can have a full-on course. Okay, all right, let's keep going. Now let's go ahead and run through some commands with Ollama. That way we are well situated and we understand how to use some of the most important commands. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. So we know that we always start with Ollama. We can say Ollama list. This will list all of the installed models internally, locally. So you can see we have 32B, 32:1B here. It's the size and when it was modified. And we have other ones that I have here. In your case, you should probably, most likely, just have one. Let's say I want to delete or remove a model. I can say Ollama remove. Also, I can say Ollama help, which is going to give me some of the commands that I can use. We have serve, we have create, show, run, stop, pull, push, list. We've seen before. PS and RM for remove. So let's start with, I'm going to go back, say Ollama list to show the list of all of the models that we have here. Let's say I want to delete this one here. So I'm going to copy that and I'm going to say clear Ollama RM to remove and pass in the model name. Hit enter and it's going to delete that model. Now if I go ahead and say Ollama list again, we should see that we no longer have that model. Very good. And if you want to delete this other one here, you can also do like that. Now if we want to go ahead and pull in a new run, we can say Ollama and I'm going to say pull and the name of the model as we've seen before. So again, we can go back to our models website, all right, Ollama library models, and let's say we want to get Gemma. Okay, so I go back here, you can see models, we have all these models. Let's say I want to get something different. Let's say we want this code Gemma. If you click here, you can see that we have different flavors. Let's say I want to be the smaller, so you can see we can run this one here. I can either run all of this or I can just pull first this one and then run it. Okay, so two ways to do the same thing. So I can say Ollama pull like that. It's going to go ahead and pull our model. Now remember, this is 1.6 gigabytes and it may take a little bit. Okay, so once that is done, I can say Ollama list. We should see that we have code Gemma. So I can now run it, right? So let's go ahead, say Ollama, run code Gemma. So it's going to now run code Gemma so we can interact with it. I go back here, you can say that code Gemma is a collection of powerful, lightweight models that can perform a variety of coding tasks like fill in the middle, code completion, code generation, so forth. So let's see, we can test it out, right? We can see if this works. So I can say, for instance, write me a Python function that returns hello world. Okay, there we go. You can see define function, your name, return hello world, your name, and there we go. All right, very good. So you can see that we're able to, of course, download a new model and test it out. So what I can do again, I can just say /by to get out of here. And then I can say Ollama list to see that. And I can copy this and remove it. So I'm going to say Ollama RM to remove that and it's deleted. And Ollama list again, you can see that we no longer have Gemma. Okay, so back to our models here. I can go ahead and look at models and imagine that we want to find a model that deals with images or that is able to read an image and tell us what's going on. There's a model called Lava. So Lava is a novel end-to-end trained large multi-model that combines a vision encoder and Vicuna for general purpose visual and language understanding. So this is a good candidate for what we call a multi-modal model, which means is that it's able to deal with images as well as text and so forth and other types. Okay, so we have just this one, and then we have this Lava Llama 3. So depending on the situation, we can read more to figure out which one is the one we should probably look into. So let's click on this Lava. And as you can see, we have 7B, 13B, and 34B. So you know which one we're going to be using. So I'm going to go ahead and get at least the 7B, which is this one here, latest or 7B, doesn't matter. It's about 4.7 gigabytes. Okay, so let's go ahead and pull this one in. I'm going to copy that. And let's go ahead and just paste it all in and get our Lava 7B. All right, so after a little while, you can see that we downloaded a few things here, but most importantly, we have this 4.1 gigabytes. So we have now our model is running, and you can see we have our shell. I'm going to just say, what is your name? See what's going to say. I don't have a name. Of course, it's just a large language model. Okay, so now let's see what we can do. One thing I'm going to do actually is I'm going to move over to a code editor, VS Code, to make this simple. Okay, so I'm just going to say bye for now. And then I'm going to open up here to see VS Code. So I have this flower_1 PNG. We're going to use this with, of course, our Lava model to see if it can read this image and tell us what it's all about. Okay, so let me go ahead and open the terminal here real quick. And so what I'm going to do first, let's go ahead and say Olama. I'm going to run Lava 7B. Okay, now it's running. Very good. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to say what is in this image, and I'm just going to pass the image name, which is flower1.png. Let's see what's going to happen. So now it's going to think and tell us exactly what it sees. The image shows a bunch of small purple white flowers with yellow centers, which appears to be a type of pansy. They're growing in what seems like soil or a potting medium, surrounded by what looks like green foliage. So that's pretty good, right? For if you go back here and look, yeah, it looks exactly, that's exactly what it's describing, which is really, really awesome. Now let's test something here. I'm going to test to see if this model has this history capability, meaning it's able to save the conversation for context. I'm going to say, and now write me a short poem about that. Let's see what's going to happen. Ah, there we go. So it was able to look at that. A purple and white with yellow hearts defined. They add a touch of beauty to the world around. A little patch and so forth. So it knows, now we know if we're testing, that this model is able to save the context, the history of the things that we've been asking, the context of our conversation. Tell me more about those flowers. Let's see what's going to say. Okay, there we go. It knows exactly what flowers we're talking about, which is what we had here. Okay, I can ask, can you tell me where they grow best? And keep in mind again, this is all local large language model that we're running. We don't have to go and send a request to a network somewhere. It's all local. Very good. So pansies are native to the Mediterranean region and all that great stuff. Very good. So we see that it is indeed working. So we're able to pull in a new large language model, in this case Lava, which is a multi-modal model, which allows us to deal with text as well with images and so forth, and we ask it to tell us what it sees, right, in this image here, and it was able to give us the description of the image, and we ask some follow-up questions about that image, and it works. So I've changed to Ollama run llama 3.2 model right now. So I'm going to do it again. You can see since it's loaded, then we can see that we are able to go to the shell. So what I want to be able to do is show you that we can also do many different things here, right? So because we are running on a large language model, it's a model that does a lot of things. I can perhaps say I have a sentence that I'm not sure the sentiment of that sentence, right? I can say, tell me what is the sentiment of the following sentence. I am not willing to pay you back. Let's see what's going to happen. Okay. Again, it's very verbose, which is okay, but essentially says that the sentiment of the sentence, I am not willing to pay you back, is negative and confrontational. It implies that the speaker is unwilling or unable to repay a debt. All right, so this is really good. Now, one thing we can do, I can also say, can you please be less verbose? Okay, there we go. So the beauty here is that we are talking or you're interacting with a large language model, and you can actually prompt it to do what you want it to do. In this case, I told it to always be less verbose, at least in this case. And you can see it says the sentiment of I am not willing to pay you back is negative and confrontational. It implies resentment, defensiveness, and obligation aversion. Okay. Now, the beauty here is also we can modify, or in this case, customize our model, because we can actually add certain pieces of metadata to the model that cater to what we want it to be like. What I mean by that is that we can actually create a file here, right click, I'm going to click here, and this is what we call a model file. So it has to be something like this, model file, no extension whatsoever. And inside of this file, this is where we are going to add a few lines of text code, essentially. So at the top here, I'm going to say, all caps, say from, because we are modifying it from a base model. It's going to be from llama 3.2 in this case. If you have something different, you add that. And then here is where we're going to set a few things. So we can set a lot of things, but now I'm going to show you how to set, in this case, the temperature. What is a temperature? Temperature is what allows the model to be more creative or more direct and matter of fact. So the higher the number, in this case from 0 to 1, the higher the number, closer to 1, the more elaborate, the more creative the model is going to be. Okay, so I can change to 0.3, for instance, if I want it to be less creative. And then I can add, for instance, the system message. So this is just the prompt, right, that it needs to know of. So in this case here, put that into, let's say, triple quotes like that, to say inside here we can put text. A very smart assistant who answers questions succinctly and informatively. Okay, something like this. So this is our model file, which is going to allow us to modify or customize our model. Okay, so we can add more parameters here, more things to aid our model, but this is okay for now. So how do we do this now to make it so that our model indeed will comply with what we put together here in this model file? Well, it's very simple. All we have to do now, I'm going to, let's go say bye real quick here. All we have to do now is we need to use the create command from Ollama to create some sort of a new version of our model, which is going to be specified by this model file. Very easy, really. So I'm going to say Ollama and then say create, and I can give it a name. Just say James. Okay, whatever you want. And then we're going to say F to say to the file. It's going to be under the model file. Notice the model file is actually the same level here, so I can just go ahead and that. So if I hit enter, what's going to happen now? Let's say enter. Okay, so it says success. You can see that it went ahead and transferred model data, so using the layers and everything in the background. And so now if I say, for instance, list, you can see that we have this James. So it really created a replica of the main model, and now this is going to be different from the Llama 3.2, right? Because it will have a little bit more of a modified, customized piece to it. Very good. So now I can use Mario, or James I should say, to ask questions. So look, now I can say, Llama, first run James. Look at that. And we should run James. How beautiful is that? So look at what will happen. I can say, what is your name? Look what's going to happen. My name is James. And look how succinct it is. It goes straight to answer what needs to be answered. Are you smart? Let's see. I designed to process and provide accurate information quickly and efficiently, making me highly knowledgeable on a wide range of topics. And all of that comes from this, because we said that your assistant, that was very smart, answer questions succinctly and informatively. Very good, very good. You can see the power of things you can do, right? So now I can ask questions. Let's see. Let's say, tell me about the oceans. Let's see. Okay, so this is pretty good because it's such an open-ended question. It went ahead and there are 5 oceans. It gives me all that information. Oceans play a crucial role in regulating the Earth's climate, weather patterns, and ecosystems. They also provide all of this information here. Okay, so it is to the point. That's pretty good. This was just an example to show you the things you can do. You can actually modify, customize your model to be and do certain things that you wanted to do. This, of course, was very, very simplistic, but you can see for the system here, we can prompt it even better with more complex information and change temperature and all these different things. Let's go ahead and just say bye. And because we're done, let's go ahead and get rid of it so that we save some space. So Llama RM James. Okay, so for Llama list, we should not see James. And while I'm here, let me go ahead and actually get rid of some of these as well so that we have more space. Okay, very good. So far, we've been using the CLI, the command line interface with Llama, which is attached with Llama, that governs everything in the back end. But we can also use the REST API. In fact, most of the things that we're going to be using later are based on the REST API, which means there is an endpoint that we can hit and run, in this case, the models. So how does that work? One thing to keep in mind is that in the back end, as you see, well, you can't quite see here, but at the top in my bar here, I do have this, well, you probably see this Squid Llama, but there is this Llama that is running in the back end. So that means in the background, it's running, which means we're able to do all sort of things that we're doing, right? The Llama application per se, it's running. But it's actually being served at an endpoint locally. And all of that is being served at localhost 11434. What does that mean? Well, that means then we can generate a response using the Llama REST API because it has it attached to it and it's running in the back end, in the background. Okay. So to do so, it's very simple. All you have to do, you have access to all of this, we can curl something like this. So in this case, you can see I say curl, and this is the endpoint. So localhost 11434 API generate, and then -d. And then we pass the payload here. So here we're saying the model is going to be Llama 3.2, right? And the prompt we're passing along it, why is the sky blue? So if I were to run this or hit enter, what will happen is it's going to hit that endpoint, and of course it's going to show me this. Now, this is not very helpful mainly because it just shows a lot of gibberish and there is this stream that's happening. But if you look closely, you can see that every time this runs Streamly, it's going to show a certain word in the response. So combining all these words will be the response. So that means then when we write the actual REST API payload, we need to also add something else to it to tell it that we don't want it to stream as it is right now, so that we just get the result. What that means, now I can, let me go back down, let's clear. So now what we need to pass is this here that says stream false. So say we don't want it to stream, just give us the response. If you hit enter, you can see it will take a few moments and then voila, we have this model, everything, all the metadata about the model that we're using. In this case, I said, tell me a fun fact about Portugal, and then says here is one response. Did you know that the town of Óbidos in Portugal is often called the fairy tale town due to its medieval architecture and picturesque streets, right? And gives it some other information. All right, so that is a difference here. If we put stream false, then we get that. If this is not there, it assumes that stream is true. That's why we get what you saw earlier. Now in this case, you can see the endpoint is generate. Now we can also get the chat with the model, the chat endpoint. Okay, so generate, the difference here is generate. It just goes ahead and predicts what needs to happen. As you see, it just gives us the result. But we can also pass in the chat endpoint. So let me go ahead and clear. To do so, I have that. You have access to all of this anyway, so no worries. And there we go. We do the same thing, curl. Now the endpoint here is API/chat and then -d. And then we pass here the payload. So we pass the model, the messages, plural. That's why we have here a list. Okay, so we pass the role, it's going to be user, and the content is going to say, tell me a fun fact about Mozambique. Let's go ahead and run this. So there we go. And now this is a different endpoint. It gives us here's one fun fact about the Gorongosa Peninsula, which has one of the largest coral in the world. I think this is actually not correct. They have to remember that sometimes these large language models are not always correct. So there's no such thing as Gorongosa Peninsula. I know this because I'm from there. But anyway, you can see that it's giving us some results. Large language models are not always correct. Right, so to create large language model applications using Ollama, we saw that, first of all, we can use large language models that come with Ollama because Ollama hosts, per se, all of these different large language models we can use. Now, we also learned that there are different ways to interact with Ollama and its models. So we saw that the main way is through the CLI, the command line interface. So it's easy, straightforward, and that's what we've been looking into. And then the second way would be, in this case, to use UI-based interface, which we're going to look into next. So essentially, have a user interface where the back end we can put or apply a model, Ollama model, and then we have a nice user interface that users or yourself can use to interact with the model. Now, we've just finished looking at the REST API. So this is the base of essentially everything else we're going to be doing after the next UI-based interface way of interacting with the models. Okay, so essentially we're able to use REST API, curl, and then hit the endpoint and get information that way about generating text, or in this case, deleting things, deleting models, or looking up everything related to our models. So essentially the same things that we're able to do using the CLI, we have a way of doing that using the API, the REST API. And later, we'll see, we're going to use Ollama Python library. Now, this is where we're going to be able to then use the tools in Python in code, because now we have more customization, more freedom per se, to start building the actual large language models applications that we so want to do. Okay, so now let's go ahead and look at the UI-based interface. So if you go to MSty, that app, MSTY, that app as you see here, this is what you will see. So you can read about it. It says Llama 3.2, Vapor Mode, all this great stuff. It says the easiest way to use local and online AI models. So without Misty, painful setup, endless configurations, confusing UI, Docker, and all these other things. With Misty, one app, one click setup, no Docker, no terminal, offline and private, unique and powerful feature. So that's the reason why I chose this. Of course, you can choose any other that you might find out there that I mentioned. So this is what I'm going to be using. And you can see there's a lot of logos here saying that it works with Meta stuff, with Chat, OpenAI, and many others. So it's really good. So you can see Windows, Mac, and Linux, and they do have a user interface, so you can see exactly how it will look like. So essentially, it's going to be like having ChatGPT, but now we are running our own models. So click here, and I am on Mac. Of course, I'm going to go that way. If you're on Windows, you have the option to do the 64 or 64 CPU only, AMD or NVIDIA. If you're on Mac, you have Apple Silicon or Intel chip. If you're Linux, of course, you have these flavors as well. So pick the one that works best for you. So I'm on Mac. I'm going to go to Apple Silicon like that. So it's going to go ahead and download. Okay, so it's now downloaded. Let's go ahead and open it, and I'm going to double click to start the installation. So I'm going to go ahead and drop it there. Very good. And let me go ahead and open it real quick. Okay, so I'm going to say open. All right, and there you have it. Now, once you open it, this should happen. And the beauty here is that you can see how would you like to get started. You can say set up locally AI, add remote models provided, and so forth. But if you look down here, look at this. Got Ollama, get started quickly using Ollama models. All right, and even found it under users, me, Ollama, and all the models. They found it locally because it detected that we have Ollama installed on our machine. So I'm going to go ahead and say continue down here. Okay, that's it. Just one click and we are done. And you can see here at the bottom here, make sure I can make this larger. Yeah, I can make this larger. That's very good. Okay, at the bottom here, you can click, maybe smaller. You can click and see we have different levels or different models. We have Llama 7B, which you remember, and I have Llama 3.2. All right, because those are the ones that we have installed, or at least I have installed locally. If you have more than one, then you're going to see all of them show here. And this is beautiful because we didn't have to do anything. Just one click, indeed, like they promised, and we are there. So let me choose the Llama 3.2. And the moment you do that, that's it. And you can just start chatting just like that. I'm going to say, how old are you? Just silly to see what's going to say. So this is being powered again by our own model. So I was released to the public in 2023. Very good. Can you tell me a funny short story? And just like that, look how fast this is. One day, a man walked into the library and asked the librarian, "Do you have any books on Pavlov's dogs and Schrodinger cats?" Schrodinger, I think that's what you say. The librarian replied, "It rings a bell, but I'm not sure if it's here or not." Okay, that's very cool. So we have that. So you can start talking, you can start chatting with this large language model. And if I wanted to, I can also go and attach a document. Let's click here. And I'm going to add one image that we've seen before. Drop it there. Now image is attached. Let me go back here. And I can ask, tell me about the image. Now, here's the thing. The reason why it's saying this is because the model doesn't, because we're using Llama 3.2, it doesn't really know how to deal with the images. However, if I change here, go to Llama 7 and ask the same question, tell me about the image. Aha. And now, because Llama is a multimodal model, it will know how to answer questions about the image. there we go. Now it's working. The image shows two purple flowers with yellow centers. Okay, very good. So it is describing. It took a little bit of doing here. Perhaps I should have reset everything, but it's okay. You can see that now it is actually working because we're using Lava 7 and it will tell me exactly what it sees. Now I can change to Llama 2 or 3.1. And if I say, tell me about the image, it's going to give me some issues, of course. Okay, very good. So it can't do that. But the other thing I can do here, I can also add, let me just delete this, I'm going to add a document. Let's say, for instance, I'm going to add this document that we've seen before, which is the BOI PDF. There we go. I'm going to say, can you tell me about the PDF file? Okay. So now I have some issues here. The best way to do this is you go to attach knowledge stacks. So click here and I'm going to say add your first knowledge stack. So I'm going to say my tester. And the thing is, because we are now invoking and want to create a RAG system, we need to have an embedding model so that it can create those embeddings of the PDF file of the document. That way it can be saved and then the large language model is able to converse that way. Okay, so we're going to just use whatever they give us, Nomic embedding text. I'm going to add that. It's very good. And at this point, let's go ahead and add an actual file. So I'm going to go ahead and drop it again. In this case here, just drop it like that. All right. So once you do that, you have to hit compose so that it's able to pick it up, do all the things it needs to do to actually get information from our file. Okay, embeddings and everything. Say compose. So it's composing. Okay, knowledge stack saved and composed successfully. You can now use it for chatting. Very good. So let me get out of here and I'm going to go here. So click again here. And what I want to do here is I want to be able to say, click on my tester, because this is my knowledge base. I want to include in my chat here. So make sure you click that. And that will, what that will do is will let this know that indeed we have included that knowledge base, which includes all the information about our PDF file. So say, give me a summary of the PDF file. Okay, let's says there's no PDF file mentioned in our conversation so far. The text we discussed earlier was from beneficial ownership and everything. So it took a little bit because I'm asking PDF. It doesn't really know about the PDF because all of that information was actually transformed into text and embeddings and everything for the large language model. So I just can say, give me a summary of the document. Okay, there we go. So it says the document provides instruction on how to fill out certain items, including identifying documents issues, company's image and everything, and it is indeed beneficial ownership for all of that. So we've seen this before. I can keep asking, what are the penalties for not filing? And there you go. It gives me exactly the penalty and everything that will happen if I don't file, right? Or I can just say, give me the penalties. Maybe that's a better question, perhaps. Okay, that's better because now it's giving me exactly what I need. Okay, based on the text from the beneficial ownership information, blah, blah, blah. And everything is there. Failure to comply with beneficial ownership reporting requirements, civil penalty 10,000, fines up to 500,000, and so forth. Okay. What are the deadlines for filing? Okay, so you can see that this is working. We're able to converse with our data, our own document. Now, the beauty here, if you haven't realized yet, is that all of this again is internal. It's our own large language models. We can, of course, go and spin out a different large language model. okay, adding your provider and so forth, and we can use interchangeably as you see here. And we passed in a knowledge base, which means we said here are some documents, in this case which is one document, and use that to create a knowledge base, so a RAG system essentially, and so that we can chat and ask questions about that knowledge base. Okay, and just like ChatGPT, we can go ahead and create a new chat. We can do all sort of things as you see here. The point is not for me to go through Misty thoroughly. The point is to show you what's possible to create a user interface, or to use a user interface that is guided or is being fueled by our own Ollama model. How cool is that? So what I want you to do is to play around with this, and you can see it's just to show you how amazing this is, because we have our own box that we can pass in sensitive documents and all those things without worrying about prices, having to call an API, anything external, put this in a cloud base, or having to pay for usage. So it's all here and we can use as we see fit. All right, my friend, I hope this was helpful, and I hope you found this helpful and that you're able to run your own large language models locally without having to worry about privacy and all the things that we worry about. But most importantly, as you know now, you can run these large language models that are pretty awesome at no cost. They are free. You don't have to pay OpenAI a dime. That's a good thing. Now, if you like this video and you found this video helpful, that would really help me if you like this video, as well as subscribing if you're not a subscriber. Fun fact, most people who watch my videos are not subscribers, which is really sad. So I really would enjoy your company. Come to my home, because this is like my home. You're welcome. Subscribe and let's have some good fun. Thank you so much for your time. Till next time, be well.